Now we're on to the second layout. Now, for a minute, what I'd like to talk about is a lot of times people will say, okay, but you pick all these page kits, but how do you decide what pictures you're going to scrap once you have the page kits done? Now, I do this a couple of different ways. If I'm going to scrap at home, I normally don't choose the photos to go with the page kits. So as I grab a page kit, I just look at it, see how the page kit makes me, what it makes me think about. And in this case, for whatever reason, when I looked at all those bright colors, it made me think of some pictures that I had of the kids at the beach. And it's, not necessarily beachy colors or anything, but I just had that feeling. I was looking through my photos, for the previous kit. And usually what I do is I have a box of photos that I keep by my desk, and it'll have different timelines of photos. And, if I had done a picture or a layout of a picture in that year, not that long ago, then it would still be in there. I wouldn't have put it back in the photo box yet. So as I'm going through it for another layout, I saw these pictures. So as soon as I saw this kit, I was like, oh, that would go really well of, Josh and Kate playing in the sand. And this was quite a few years ago. So again, I just take the pattern papers in the size that they came in, and again, just looking at it and then saying, okay, well, so I can see the other layer underneath, maybe that pattern paper I can just cut like an inch off, like that raspberry, the one with the circle. It was 12 inches, but if I wanted to be able to see the stripes that were underneath and the green pattern paper, I'm going to need to cut it down a little bit. So that's how I kind of determine whether I'm going to cut it down or not. Then that line paper, the one where I have Summer Love right on top of it, same thing. When I put the strip there, I knew I wanted the strip. I wanted to make like a little shelf for my photos. I looked at it and I went, well, I don't want it to go right across the layout. I want it to stop so that it looks like a little shelf. So as I'm, putting these layers together, I kind of look and see if the pattern paper that's over top the other one, is it cutting in too much into that pattern paper, so then I can snip a little bit off. I cut down the photo just a few, maybe half an inch on each side. At first I thought I was going to mount it right inside that light pink pattern paper, and I decided against it, because once I mounted the photo on white and I put it next to that pink cardstock, I thought, well, that'll be cool if I just kind of put it so that it's off to the side, so it's covering sort of two sides. And in the last class, I mentioned that when I mount my whole layout, sometimes I like to sometimes put a border all the way around, sometimes just put a border around two sides, or just at the very edge. Well, I like to do that with my photos too. So by putting the matte offset, then it looks like the photo is just double matted on two areas. Then once I put the shelf there, when I looked at that raspberry pattern paper, I was like, this is kind of a busy pattern paper. There is nowhere to do my journaling. So then I just went into my stash and grabbed a Project Life card, and it fits perfectly underneath that shelf, and it makes it a perfect place to do the journaling. Then the title for this is going to be Summer Love. Again, if I would have just put it directly on that striped pattern paper, it would have been so busy, it would have just gotten lost into that striped pattern paper. And the sticker sheet that it was on was white, and I really liked how it popped. So then I just went into my stash, grabbed the leftover of that cardstock that I had matted the the photo with, and just put my title on there, took an X-Acto knife, just roughly cut around it, and then I just straightened it. And it fits perfectly right there on the striped border. And then I had a sticker that was these big flowers, so the title fits nicely tucked under that. And so I know that's going to be one of my clusters. So how do I decide where I'm going to put my embellishments? I usually start with one, and I try to look for somewhere, if the pattern paper, it kind of makes some awkward corners or anything like that. And in this case, that shelf, I knew it was the perfect place to put a title. And I love putting embellishment clusters with my title. So I knew that, so the biggest embellishment I decided to put right in the center of the layout, because again, if I tried to put it at a top cluster or something like that, it would look really heavy at the top, or if I tried to put it at the bottom, it would totally look unbalanced. But by putting it right in the center of the layout like that, it just balances the whole layout. And I had a lot of white space in my photo, so it was the perfect place to put a big embellishment like that. I find sometimes the embellishments are really big, and that's what you need to do. You need to find somewhere where you have a lot of white space in your photo, or a lot of times the perfect place for a big embellishment like that is in the center of your layout like that, so it has sort of a lot of room to breathe, and it has a place to make quite the impact on your layout. And what I mean by a lot of room to breathe, it's in an area where it's got a lot of room around it, and it doesn't feel like it's all stuffed in one little area. Another thing that it does, because it's such a big embellishment, it brings your eye right to the photo right away. So it makes it so that it makes your photo the focal area of your layout. And what I love about, again, scrapping with page kits is I'm not looking for a whole bunch of different things that's all throughout my scrap room, because that can make it so that it can be overwhelming, to go through all your stuff for one specific layout. But because I predetermined X amount of embellishments for this page kit, I'm just going through what I have right now, and I'm saying, okay, I like to start my embellishment clusters a lot of times with a flat whether it's a tag or a circle, or in this case it's a label. I love using labels for embellishment clusters. And then I find my first cluster. And once I have my first cluster, then I say, okay, where else on the layout could I put some embellishments that will make either a line or a visual triangle. And so then I go and look somewhere to see where else I can, do the second embellishment cluster. And then once I have that second one sort of nailed down, then I look and say, okay, do I want to make a visual triangle? Or in this case, I went and did sort of a diagonal line from the top left to the bottom right. And it all depends on the layout. Because I had an embellishment cluster that was right in the center of the layout, if I would have went to the top right, for example, then the two top clusters would have looked sort of equal next to each other. And if I would have went to the bottom left, then again it would have been sort of heavy on the left. And even if I would have went in the middle, then it would have been, I already had an embellishment in the middle. So, because of where the photo was placed, and because I had a shelf in the middle. For this layout, to me it's sort of called for having my third cluster at the bottom right of the layout. Then once I have the base of my embellishment clusters done, then I look for little things to finish it off. In this case, I had some vellum words that it was more like a ticket, but I just cut around the vellum just so that I could just see the word, and I put one at each embellishment cluster, and then I usually sprinkle a little bit of enamel dots. And then to finish it off, then I go get my spray mist and add some spray mist. I usually try to find a color that's a contrast, both for my enamel dots and my spray mist. So in this case, I wanted some black. I wanted a punch of color, and in the flowers, some of the leaves and stuff, instead of being green, they actually look like a dark gray black. So I found that black really pulled all the colors together. Now this is going to complete this layout. Here are some photos, and then we're now on to layout number 3.